data dictionary. Then our second chapter, which was complete web programming, and also known as classical report, because we were displaying all our output using write statement, right? That is why
Yeah.
it is known as classical report. Now we have our third chapter. So let's start with chapter 3. Chapter 3, modularization technique. Modularization technique. So if I have to simply answer this question, what is modularization? Simple answer to this particular thing is dividing our application program into simpler units. What is the meaning of dividing our smaller program into simpler units? Because the reason for it, let's say if you are writing a code or a program which is of like 100 or 200 or 500 lines, but they are not reusable in nature, then in that situation you can have a lot of problems. You can have a lot of problems which is not beneficial for any development. So we always promote our reusability nature of our code. Okay, so what we do, that instead of writing everything in a program, what we can do, we can simply divide them using the modularization technique so that they will become reusable in nature, and we can also reuse them in other programs. Is this thing clear?
Okay.
So first thing is we are dividing our application into simpler units. So what is the benefit of it? The benefit of it is this helps us to maintain the code in an easy manner, in an easy manner, and it also helps us to reduce the code redundancy, that is duplicacy of code. Okay, so that we can reduce the duplicates data also. So it also helps us to easily maintain the data because we have all the codes in separate format and separate smaller units. I can directly copy and paste them inside our programs, or I can directly call into any other program also. So it also promotes the code reusability. This feature of modularization techniques also promotes the code reusability. Now, how many types of modularization techniques? How many types of modularization techniques are there? How many types of modularization techniques are there? The first one is include program, include program. Then we have the second one, function modules. Then we have the third one, subroutines. Then we have the fourth one, class hyphen methods. So here we have four kinds of modularization techniques: include program, function module, subroutine, class method, right? So class methods, we are going to see them in our object oriented programming chapter. For till now, we will only see these three modularization techniques in our program in this particular session. Now, what is a include program? Include program. The term itself is suggesting here. What is include program? The terminology itself is suggesting here. Including something in a program, right?
Yeah.
So the use of this include program is to store the simply store the header file of a program. Header file simply means that whatever the code definition that you are defining, like type structure, internal table definition, and variable declaration, everything. You can directly copy it and store it in a single include program so that we can also reduce the lengthiness of our code. Okay, let me just show the use of this include program. I will go to my system. I will log on. I'll go to my system, log into the system here. Uh, so I'll go to my system, and here let's open any program that we have seen till now. Uh, Michael, classical reports, mm, events. No, no. Okay, let's define our program also. So Z Michael modularization technique, modularization techniques. I'll go for create button. I'll give a title, modularization techniques. In the type, I will select executable, sign the package, and transport request also. Now, how we were creating any program? First, we were defining a type structure, right? This is
Yes.
how I was defining begin of ty. Let's just create a simpler program. Then we will go for modularization, employee ID, employee name. Oh, sorry, employee ID type. It's data element type and data element. Then we have department. It's a data element. Then we have the fourth column and it's data element. This is how we define any local structure, right? Then what is our next approach? What is the next step that we do here? What is the next step
We
that we
create
do here,
internal uh, table and work area.
right? We define it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So I will simply define it, my internal table,
Internal table and work area.
right? So let's move on to internal table, type table of TY employee. Then we will go for ls employee type TY hyphen employee. Then what we do? We define our parameter or select option. So for our parameter, I will define a variable. Let's say LV employee ID type its data element. And then we will use select option to define our select option. So select option will be defined for our variable name. For our variable name, I will define my select option. Then what we do in startup selection, right? Startup selection is
Mm-hmm.
the event where we are going to write all our processing logic. So I will write my query part. So let's select employee ID, employee name, department, manager from my table name, which is employee table, into table LT employee, where employee ID in S employee ID. And then what we do? We display our data. So loop at LT employee into LS employee, and then and loop. Then we use write statement, LS employee employee ID, LS employee employee name, LS employee department, and LS employee manager. Oh, there is some issue. Let's see what is the issue. Issue is at line 29 because of this one. Now remove it. Go for syntax check, activate your program, execute it, give some input. This is how we write any program, right? This is my approach. Now, what is the definition of include program? The include program says that we are no longer required to directly define all the header things, because there can be a possibility we are going to again use them in any other program. So what we can do that instead of directly writing them in my program, I can create a separate include program from SE38. Go for SE38, give any name. Let's say I'm giving here include program, uh, your name Michael. So then I will go for create and include program. In the type, you can see we have a include program concept, right? Include program. Can you see it?
Yes.
Just click on save, sign the package and transport request. Now simply copy all the header things. Yeah, wait a second. Copy them first and then paste it here. Paste it here and activate it. Now just you can copy its name. Go in your program and just use include followed by its name. Can I say that now the length of my code has been decreased?
Yes.
The length of my code has been decreased. And if I will go inside it, see here. If I'll go inside it, this is how your program flow will start. From line 1, my compiler will start executing. When it will see this include, it will go inside this include. Inside this include, you can see that we have a structure and we are defining our internal table and work area. After that, we are creating our select option. And once it is done, we are moving forward. So we are moving forward. Wait a second. Yeah. Then what we will do, now we have got include, right?
Yes.
So the length of my code has been decreased. So this is the concept of include program, that now this include it has become reusable, right? This include has become reusable. I can simply copy it and I can use it in any program that I want. Isn't it beautiful?
It's beautiful.
Yes, it is very useful in nature. We can directly call it in any other program also. Okay.
Okay.
This is the concept of our include program. If you will execute your code, you can see it is working perfectly fine. It is working perfectly fine. Your code is working perfectly fine. No issues here, right? Okay.
True.
This is your include program, one of the modularization technique. Modularization simply means dividing our codes into simpler parts, so that we can reuse them based on the requirement that we are going to have face any kind of requirement. Okay.
Okay.
Now in the after the include program, I will go for another concept called function modules. What do you think? What is the meaning of a function?
To perform an activity.
Yeah, any activity. What is the function of a human? What is the behavior of a human? So a human behavior is to speak, run, write something, eat something. These all are the functions of a human.
Mm-hmm.
So a function is a reusable piece of code. In your SAP, they are called as function modules, and they have a separate workbench. Like we have a web editor, we have data dictionary, separate workbench tool, SE11 and SE30, same to same. For our function module, we have got a separate workbench tool, SE37. Okay, so a function modules is a reusable piece of code or small program. So piece of code that provides a interface interface for data exchange. What is the meaning of data exchange? Whenever you purchase something, what kind of activity you perform there? You give some money, right? So you
Yes.
give some input, and in return you get some output, that is your product. Same stuff. This is your this will provide you a interface for exchanging your data. A function module will provide you a interface for exchanging your data. You will give input, and in return you can get any kind of output that you want. Again, this is a separate workbench tool, SE37, and since we are defining it separately, we can call it in any program. Okay, very reusable in nature. That is why I have written here reusable piece of code. A lot of standard function modules are also there, which we will see later on, but for now, function module is a reusable piece of code that provides interface for data exchange. Then you can also write it. Function module is a modularization technique, right?
Yeah.
It's a modularization technique. Third point, what could be third point here? So the transaction code to create a function module is SC37. 3 points. The transaction code to create a function module is SC37. Now, before implementing function module, I have a question. Let's say I want to store a packet of biscuit. What will I need?
Come again, please.
Let's say I want to store a packet of biscuit. My requirement is I want to store a packet of biscuit. Where will I store it?
In the package.
I'm talking about packet of biscuit. So you are going to store it in a technical package, in a program.
Yes.
I'm asking you packet of biscuit. Where do you store a packet of biscuit, Michael?
Packet of diskettes.
Biscuits, nahi, biscuit.
In a
Do you know
file.
what?
In a folder or something.
Biscuit, which you eat. Simple.
Biscuits.
Yeah,
Okay,
biscuit.
biscuit in a
Container, right? In a packet or
in a
in a
container,
container,
in a nylon or something.
right? So we require, when we are going for storing anything, it can be a vegetable, it can be fruit, it can be food, it can be biscuits, it can be a junk food, whatever you would like to eat. Everything is simply stored in some place, in a container or whatever you do, right?
Yeah.
When we created our include program, we simply stored it in a file, right? So same stuff is there for your function module. If you want to create a function module, it requires a container.
A container, yeah.
So function modules requires a container to store them. And one more hint here is that in the internally this function module will be implemented as a include program. Okay, whatever code that you are going to write, I will show you how it is going to be done. So internally, this function module will be implemented as an include program. So function modules requires a container to store them, and that container is known as function group. Function group. Do you remember this function group terminology? Do you
Yeah.
remember TMG?
Yes, I remember TMG.
In the TMG, we have a function group column where function group field where we pass the name of our table.
Okay.
So the same stuff is here. We require a function group. There we also needed the function group to store our tables. The same stuff is there. Function group, we need to store the function module. So how we will create a function group? So to creating function module, to creating your function group, you will go to SCAT, Object Navigator, the parent of every object in our SAP. From here, we can access everything of our SAP system. So Object Navigator is the parent of our SAP system where we can access everything. So when you want to go for function group, just simply select here function group. and create, just pass any function group that you want. So let's say I will pass a function group with your name, ZMI function group, and I will press enter. What is the pop-up message I am getting? That
Do
this function group does not exist. Do we want to create it? Yes, we want to create it. I will provide a short description. So function group for ABAP training, and I will click on save. I will assign the package and transport request. Okay. Once you create your function group, never ever forget to activate it. Always activate your function group.
Okay.
Always activate it. Activation is mandatory. Now, when you will go for this includes inside the function group, you can see we have got top and UXX. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This XX will be replaced by the 01 to 99 keyword. Okay.
Okay.
From 01 to 99. So total 99 function module, you can store it in a single function group. This is the beauty of a function group. We can store total 99 function modules in a single function group. And here by default, it will come when we will create it. So let's just copy our function group and let's start creating our function module. So before creating it, I want to take a requirement. Okay.
Okay.
Because if it is a usable piece of code there, let's say we have a requirement. My requirement is that for my function module, i will pass I will pass input in form of select option. Okay, I will pass input in form of select option for employee ID. The same stuff that we are doing inside our program. See here, right? So what I want is that this select option I will send to the function module. Okay, I will send to the function module, and in return it will give me, it will return us the employee data from the employee table. Is the requirement clear?
It's clear.
So how will I go for it? SE37 is the transaction code from where you can create your function module. Just go for it and simply give a function module name. So from ZMI function module for employee, let's say for employee. Now I will go for create button. As soon as I will click for create button, see here, by default it is asking for a function group, right? So
Yes.
it is
So it's
mandatory. It is a container where our function module is going to be stored. So copy our function group name and paste over here. And
okay.
then provide a short description. So function module for our employee details. Then I will click on save button and I will click on OK button. See here, we are in the interface of our function module. You can see we have got attributes. Attributes always contains all the generic data of every database object or anything that you are going to create, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
import section. So whatever you want to send from that particular program, it will be received into this import section. Then we have export section. From here we can export the data. So whatever you want to receive in the program, you can pass over here. Parameters, here are
Mm-hmm.
the parameters that we can see. Changing is the tab where we can use this changing tab as a input and output. It works as both. We can use them for both input and output portion.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have table section. So here we can only pass the internal tables. If you want to just send some data from there in form of internal table, you can use it. Or if you want to receive some data from this thing in form of tables, you can use this tab. Then we have exceptions to pass a particular exception. Okay, whenever you want to pass a particular exception, then you can use this particular section of your function module. Then see here, we have got source code. Here we will write our program. Here we will write our logic. Here we will write our logic. Is this thing clear?
It is.
Now in the import, what was my requirement? That I want to pass the select option for employee ID, right? Select
Okay.
option for employee ID. So we will give here a parameter name. So let's say I'm giving uh, employee, or let's say in for parameter we usually use p keyword. This is not the parameter that we have seen in our web programming. Okay, this is a different parameter. That parameters, that was a parameters. Okay, it was used for taking single input. This is a parameter of your function module. Parameter simply means what is, if you want to something pass over here, you want to receive something inside the function, you want to send something from there to this function module, you will have to use the parameter. Say in the export we have the parameter, in the changing we have the parameter, in the tables we have the parameter, in the exception we have the exception. Okay, that is a different thing. So in the parameters for our employee data, I will create a parameter for it. So p employee ID, let's say for parameter that we want to send in form of select option. Now in the typing, I will use type keyword. And in the associated type, we will pass the data type of our parameter that we want to send from our program, because this is import section. In this import, your function will import something from your program. What will be the data type of our select option? Please tell me. What will be the data type of our select option? What do you think?
Maybe character.
Select option, you want to pass a character. Okay, let me just show you. This is my select option. What is its data type? Variable, right? This variable is of type employee ID. Is
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
But if you go inside the program, just put a debugger over here, activate it first, put a debugger over here, click for execute, give some input, and go inside it. Then you will be able to understand what is the use of it. Go back to desktop 3 and see, double click on select option. What type is your select option?
Standard table.
Standard table. Okay, standard table. Standard table simply means internal table. So if
Okay.
there is something internal table, what will be its data type? What will be its data type? Do you remember how we were creating our internal table using table type
Using
in
table
our,
type.
yeah, we know three ways to create our internal table, right? We know three ways to create our internal table. The first one is using uh, type table of keyword, right? Then we have the global structure, and then we had the table type where we are directly passing the type. Remember
Okay.
this thing? Let me just show you. You might have forgotten again. So data lt employee and type, we were passing the table type that we had created from our AC11. Do you remember it?
Yes.
So the same thing, because my select option is of table, internal table. Here the your associated type must be a table type. If your select option was a type of work area, you can pass here structure. If your that particular thing, if you want to pass some variable, you can directly pass the elementary data type here, right? You can directly pass the character, or you can directly pass the data element over here. But since it is a select option, we are required to pass here a table type, because select option is by default a type of table. Is this thing clear?
It's clear.
So what are the parts of select option? If I have to create a table type, I will need a structure, right?
Yes.
So how will I do that? If you remember, let me just show it again. I will activate my program. I will put a debugger over here. I will pass some input. Let's say I'm passing some input. Now I will go inside the debugging mode. Again, double click on select option. What are the parts of our select option? How many fields are over there in my select option? How many columns are over there in my select option? 4. Sign option low and high.
Yes.
So sign option low and high. The length of your option is 2. Sign length is 1. and low and high length totally depends upon the data element of your field, employee ID, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we will create a structure first. Go to AC11, create data type, and Z MI structure for employee, for employee. I will go for create. In the structure, I will pass description here, structure for employee ID. Then four components, sign is there, right? Sign, its length is character 1. Then we have option. So option, if there is something issue, you will never ever get your correct output. Mark my words. If there is some issue, you will never get your correct output. If there is some issue, you will never get you. So everything should be same. Option, character 2. So debugging is always beneficial for us. Then we have low. In the low, I will directly pass the data element of my employee ID because I am passing the value of employee ID in low and high field. So high, it's not you, high. And here I will pass employee. Then I will activate my structure. No error. Once my structure has been activated, I will create my table type. So again, I will go to SE11 data type, and here I will pass my table type. So table type for employee. Go for create. In the table type, select this table type radio button, go for OK, give a short description. So table type for employee. Now in the line type, simply paste your structure and activate it. Assign the package and TR and activate your table type. This is how we create our table type, and we are creating it for the second type. We have already seen it. So this is how we will create our table type for our employee ID select option, and then we will simply paste it in the associated type.
Okay.
Okay.
Rename.
No, it's okay. Is it clear?
It's clear.
This is my importing. Now we want employee data from our employee table, right? So we
Yeah.
need a exporting parameter also, from which we will export data from here to our program. When we will call it from our program, here we will need a exporting parameter. So give any parameter name. So let's say I'm giving it LT table. In the type, now again, what will be the associated type? If I need some data in form of internal table, can I say that in the associated type, I will have to pass a table type?
Yes.
Definitely. So whatever columns of my table need, I will have to create a structure for them again,
Structure is again. Okay.
right? So for all these four columns, we will create our structure. So let's say structure str for employee table. I'll go for create structure. Okay. In the short description, I will pass structure for employee data. And in the component, I will simply pass the columns and their data element, right?
Yes.
Employee ID. Then we have employee name. Then we have department. Then we have manager. Whatever columns you want, you can directly add it. You will have to write logic for it, and you will be able to receive the data. Activate it. Object activated. Copy your structure. Go to SE11 again and create a table type for it. So here, let's see another name. Table. Create table type. Table type for employee table. And in the line type, I will pass my structure name and activate it. Simply activate your table type. Once this table type has been activated, I can copy its name and I can directly pass here. Press enter. table type for your employee table, right?
Yes.
Importing and exporting part is done. In this importing, I will receive the input sent by the user from the program. In this exporting, I will send my internal table data to the program and the user will receive this data. So can I say now that this will work as an interface for data exchange? Can I
Yes.
say it that it will work for as an interface for data exchange? Definitely, I can say it. It will it will return some data. Now go to exceptions tab, and in the exceptions, if you want to pass any exception, you can pass it. So let's say I'm passing wrong input. That is, if a user is let's say giving some wrong input ID, we will raise this exception. Okay, that you have entered wrong input. So wrong employee data, wrong employee data. Now activate it. Go to source code. Whatever thing that you have passed over all these tabs, it will by default come here. It will by default will come in form of comments. See here in the importing, we have
Mm.
given a parameter p employee ID of its table type. In the exporting, we have given a LT table parameter with this table type. And in the exceptions, we have passed the wrong input. Now you can simply write your logic. So select query, employee ID, employee name, department manager from your table name into table your internal table. So what is your internal table now? This is the parameter which we will receive, which will contain the data and it will be delivered to the user, right? So
Yeah,
I
right.
will simply copy it and paste it here. Now do you understand why I passed the table type? Why I passed it? Because this is an internal table. This table type must contain these columns that we are writing over the query. Okay, otherwise you will get error.
Okay.
So where your employee ID in select option, which is the input given by the user. Okay.
Okay.
So now if here also we will check that if LT table is not is initial, if LT table is initial, it simply means that if LT table is initial, it simply means that it does not contain any data, that your select option there is was wrong completely, right? It was wrong. If it is empty, can I say that select option, the data that we have passed by the user was not there in the table? That is why my internal table remain empty. No data came out from the table.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, we will raise our exception. Here in this, we will raise it. Raise, raise your exception whose name is wrong
Wrong
input.
inputs.
Again, it totally up to you if you want to write it or not. I just wanted to show this feature also. That is why I'm showing it here. So we can pass exceptions also. Now exception will be raised also. So one of the beautiful benefit of your function module is you can directly execute and check its value here. Just go for execute button. And here see, this is the select option. All these four components of your select option, right?
Yes.
How data is being stored in our. See here, IBT 101 to 105, right? Simply pass
Yes.
here. IBT for between 101, 105. Go for save, back, and execute it. See here, in the exporting parameter, I am getting 5 entries, all my records, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I can use this, I can call this function module in my program for my requirement anytime. Now, if I will pass some wrong data, let's see, I'm passing data from 1110 to 115. Go to back, click on execute, and see the exception triggered. See the exception that has been raised here. Is it wrong input? This is the exceptions we have passed now. Are you there?
Yes.
So this is the exception that we have passed and it is getting raised because of it. Now we can call this function module in our program. I can just copy the name of your function module, go to your program, go back to your program and remove all these logics. How we will call our function module. So whenever you want to call your function module, go for pattern. Here in the call function, simply pass the function module name and press enter. See, call function, your function module name, exporting keyword. So one confusion you might have, Michael, that whatever thing that you are seeing in the importing, it will become exporting from the program because we are sending something from here, right? We are
Okay.
sending something from here. This guy is receiving something. That is why here we have given this in import
Both.
parameter. This is importing, but from here we are sending, we are exporting, right?
Yes, yes, it makes
So we
sense.
will pass our select option from here. I will simply pass our select option as EMP ID. In the importing, this is my LT table which will return my internal table data. So what is the name of my internal table? LT employee. So I will simply pass here, which will receive my data and I will display it from this loop. Okay.
Yeah.
Just remove this size Savasi condition. There is no need of it. And always it is a best programming practice to always uncomment all those exceptions that you are going to see over here. Because if there will be a runtime error, so whenever you are going to use any function module in your ABAP program, always uncomment all the exceptions. So one of the exceptions we already have passed is wrong input. So I can write a logic here that if let's say size sub rc equals to 0, it simply means that above a statement has been executed successfully. Is this a statement, Michael? Yes, it is a statement now. Starting from here, it is ending at this full stop sign, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if above statement has successfully executed, it simply means I have received my data into this internal table, then I will display it. Otherwise, else if, I can also write some other logic. Let's say uh, else if size of RC equals to 1. For wrong input, we are getting size of RC value 1, right? So I will
Yes.
give here 1. And here, if there is, if the this exception is raising, we will handle it by passing a message that message employee data do not exist in my in my table, in employee table, and we will give a error message for it. And if now compare this program with your earlier programs that we had created, which one is more beautiful and organized? Definitely this one. We are
This one.
using modularization techniques, right? We are using modularization techniques to modularize our code. Okay, is this thing
Okay.
clear?
It is clear.
Now, one more question here, Michael. One more thing I would like to show you. I'll put a debugger here and see 105, 105. If you go to double click on the select option, you will always see that this is the internal table. Okay, square brackets, right? Standard table, square brackets is there, brackets is there, right?
Yeah.
So one important approach, see here, by default, we are getting a runtime error. The reason for it is The reason for it is that we are directly pass. Wait a second. We are directly passing from here. We are directly passing our select option, but we are not passing its internal table. Okay. This bracket is mandatory when you are calling you are passing your select option. When you will pass a parameter is just a variable, so there is no need of it. But here, when you are sending a Select option. So select option is a type of header line internal table. That is why this bracket is mandatory, because this parameter is receiving a data in form of internal table, right? Its type is internal table. We have defined over a table type for it. So it is looking this, it is looking for this one, that are you an internal table or not? If you are not, I cannot store you. Now, if you will activate it, go for execute, just pass any value 105 and see the beauty.
Mm.
If you want to debug it, just put a debugger over here, go for execute 1012 105, go for execute button. Let's go to desktop 3, and here what we can see is we are at line 17. But if you will click on F6, whole line will got executed. So if you want to go inside this function module, you will have to click on F5 button, this icon. It will take you to your function module. See here, we are inside the function module. This was the comment section we were seeing. This is the code we have written, right? This is the code we have written. See here, we don't have any data LT table 0 and cross 4, but we are at line 12. Just click on F6. Now see, how many data is there? 5 row.
Yes.
5 row is there. So now if we'll go outside of this loop, this particular LT employee will receive 5 records from LT table. We are importing from our function module. Here we will check if size of RC is 0, it will display it. Otherwise, if you are passing some wrong data, let's say 1110 to 115, go for execute, see it. Okay,
Mm. Okay.
very beautiful. Any doubt?
No doubt. But I'll have to watch the video again and practice it.
Yes, it is the necessary. You cannot run from practicing, otherwise you cannot become a vapor.
Yeah.
So this is the way to define our function module. Now, whenever you will go to function module, let me just show it again. Yeah. Go to attribute section. In the processing type, you are going to see three types. Regular function module, remote enabled, and update module, right? Three types of function modules are there. Regular, remote enabled, and update module.
It
So
model.
there are total three types of function module that you are going to see. The first one is regular function module, which we have created normally, also known as normal function module. Then we have this remote enabled function module. Very important, remote enabled. What do you think? What is the meaning of remote? That is, we can remotely access something which is there at some other place.
Yes. At
That
another
is the
location.
same stuff for this function module. So if your function module is of type remote enabled, it simply means that you can access it from other SAP system also. You are defining your function module over this SAP system, but you can access it from other SAP system also, provided that your both the SAP systems are remotely configured with each other. Okay, that is some stuff of basis, that when if both the systems are remotely configured with each other, you can access this function module from other SAP system if its type is remote enabled. Is this thing clear?
Yes, it is clear.
Then we have this update module, which is used for mainly for database performance, like creation, updation, and deletion, all those stuff. This is mainly used for database related kind of thing. So three kind of function modules are there. Maybe any interviewer can ask it. So I just wanted to explain. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
is it clear?
It is clear.
So this is the concept of your function module. Now third type, subroutines. Subroutines. So some point for our subroutine. First point is subroutine is also a modularization technique. Modularization technique. First point is a subroutine is also a modularization technique. Second point, so there is no or let's say unlike function module, there is no separate transaction code to create a subroutine. Okay. It also provides an interface for data exchange, and like function module, it also provides a interface for data exchange. Okay. It also provides an interface for data exchange. Fourth important point is subroutine is a block of code written in between form and end form. And fifth important point, a subroutine is written in a program itself. Is a block of code is written in a program itself. And again, one important point also, unlike function module, we cannot execute our subroutine outside of a program. So unlike function module, we cannot execute our subroutine outside of a program. If you remember, we just have executed our function module directly from SE37 transaction code, right? Directly
Yeah.
from SE37 transaction code. But the same stuff is here. Unlike function module, we cannot execute our subroutine outside of a program.
Okay.
But it is unlike. Also, like function module, it also provides an interface for data exchange, and it is defined between form and end form keyword. Form and end form keyword. So form and end form are called subroutines. Subroutine is a modularization technique. Similar to function module, it also provides an interface for data exchange, but unlike function module, there is no separate transaction code for it. It is created inside program itself, and it cannot be executed separately from the program. Is this thing clear?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to our program and see how we can define it. So I'm simply removing my function now. I, so
Mm-hmm.
one more line important for our subroutine is, let me just write over here one important line. Is it that a subroutine is always defined at the last of the program. Always. Subroutine is always the last thing. Similar to append statement. Do you remember the append structure that we created?
I
Append,
remember. Mm-hmm.
append structure in our table, it was always at the last. Same thing is there for your subroutine, because if you are writing any executable program after subroutine, it will not get executed. Subroutine will always be written after the all the execution code. It will written at the last only. So here at the last, I will go and I will use form keyword and give any name for it. So subroutine for, let's say, employee data, I'm giving a function name and end form. This is subroutine. Okay, this
Mm-hmm.
is subroutine. Now I want to use it. I want to give some input and I want to receive some data, because I have defined here as an interface for data exchange, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to send some data from program to function to the subroutine, you will use using keyword. First thing, using keyword. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
using keyword, then give the parameter name, same to function module. So what was the name? Just I'm trying to see that how they are related. Just copy it and pass it here using p employee id, and its type, whatever its type, this is my type. And then we have also one parameter called changing. Changing is the better one for while using in the subroutine, because it can be used for both importing and exporting. So in the changing, I will pass my internal table. What is my internal table? This is parameter. You can pass over here. LT table type and its associated type. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just copy all your source code, this logic, just copy it and paste over here. Is this thing clear?
It is clear.
I have created a separate bunch of code which is acting like a interface, right? It is taking some input and it will return me some data in form of LT table. In form of LT table. Just activate it. Is there any error? No.
No error.
So here I have to call a subroutine. So one more point. Another point is to call a subroutine, we use perform keyword. To call a subroutine, to call a subroutine, we use perform keyword. So here I will use perform subroutine name, perform subroutine name. Again, using, I will pass my select option as employee ID, and in the changing, I will pass my internal table name, which is LT employee, this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
LT employee. So what will happen now? What will happen when I will come to line 17? This particular subroutine will be called. This data will be sent to the subroutine, and this changing parameter will also be sent. So we will go inside the subroutine. This query will execute. It will store some data in LT table, right? It will store some data in LT table. So this changing LT table data will now come to LT employee, and it will be displayed over here. It will be used to display data using write statement, using
Mm.
write statement. So activate it, and there is some issue. Just read it and tell me what is this error.
Error found activating the program in program. The actual parameter and formal parameter are incompatible. The parameters are incompatible.
They are incompatible. Why they are incompatible? Because again here, see here, my parameter is expecting some data of table type, but again I am simply passing the select option without bracket. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Now activate it. Just put a debugger over here. Go for execute. Give some input. Let's say 105. Go for execute. And let's check it out. So desktop 3. Now, if you will directly click on F6, this will be directly executed. So if you want to go inside it, go for F5. See here, we enter the subroutine. If we'll double click on P employee ID, you can see here we are receiving the select option from 101 to 105. If you will double click on LT employee table, LT table, there is no data at this moment because this query has yet to be executed. Now, if you will click on F6, this query will be executed and we have got 5 data. So now get out of it and see if size of RC equals to 0. Yes, definitely size of RC is equal to 0. So my loop will got executed. My loop will get executed. See here, my write statement.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are 3 kinds of modularization techniques that we have. This is your 3rd chapter. Is it
Okay.
something lengthy?
It's
Or
lengthy.
is it lengthy? Or is it very difficult?
It's not very difficult. One just need to uh, look at it again, read it again, again and again.
Yeah. So if you will go for it, revise it, everything will be easy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, our chapter 3 ends. With this, our chapter 3 ends.